Hi, you're listening to Defend Your Time. I'm your host, Chris Taylor. This is the podcast where we help you get stronger security, more value, and fewer headaches out of your Microsoft security investments. And today I'm joined by Andrew Tranter, SOC Analyst or Cyber Defender here at Ontinu. And we're going to talk to you about some of the open source free tools that you can use to uplevel your digital forensics and incident response game. So I'm really excited to have Andrew on with us. Speaking personally, I know I try to solve a technical problem. I'm oftentimes inundated by vendors, bolt-on solutions, people trying to sell me something to solve a very specific problem, when oftentimes there's a perfectly good tool out there that's free, that's open source, that's going to more than solve my problem. But the problem is those tools don't really advertise to me. So I think this is going to be a great discussion. Andrew joins us, and he's going to talk about some of the things that you can use with your Windows event logs. You can supplement that information with some of these tools to get much better results out of your DFIR. If a specific incident you're looking to investigate, if you're trying to get into threat hunting, or if you're just trying to get into DFIR, then this is going to be a great episode for you. Andrew, thank you for joining and welcome.
Yeah, not a problem.
So first, Andrew, I introduced you as a SOC analyst, a cyber defender here at Ontinu. Could you just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you do here at Ontinu.
I work in the front line, try to run alerts for the customers that we have as part of our managed service. So we're the front line dealing with the events as we see them live, and the first ones to respond to the customer when issues need to be raised.
So you brought up this topic to me. You thought it would be good to talk about some of the open source tools that are available. Why is this important? Who's going to care about this, and who's going to find this helpful?
These are massively important to give us that little deep dive information into what the alerts we're looking at. Networks and estates can get quite big and quite complex, and as can the alerts in which you work. Sometimes we get straightforward alerts where a defender may have taken some action, or the very simple and straightforward, but sometimes we work on a larger scale alert where we may say multiple hosts across a network which have been compromised, lateral movements, multiple issues of malware across the estate.
So what are some of the tools that you wanted to talk about today?
Yes, the three main tools we've got: Yamato-Security's Hayabusa, we've got WithSecureLabs Chainsaw, and then to view the output of those, my personal preference is Timeline Explorer by Eric Zimmerman. You can use Excel. That is fine. It does take a little bit of work to get it looking nice and readable. So for me, Timeline Explorer is the winner to actually read the output of these logs.
Okay, perfect. Should we start with Hayabusa and talk to us about...
All Windows devices produce event logs. And with us being a Defender partner, we have Defender for Endpoint running across our customers. That gives us the ability to live response. Live response gives us access to the host, in which we can actually grab a copy of these files, which are being constantly updated. So we're getting the action as it is up until the point of where we press download. Then one of the tools I like to use first, again, I said it is Hayabusa. This was made to be an incredibly fast forensics timeline generator and threat hunting tool. You feed it a load of event logs and it runs Sigma rules and Hayabusa rules against them, which are like predefined detections. And from there, it will pop you out the output of what it's found. It's really powerful because it can run through a large amount of these in minutes. It's superb in where it works. I really am a fan of Hayabusa because the rules are quite simple to write, and rules can be written quite complex, quite easily. We also have a converter from Sigma to Hayabusa rule format, which is probably a bit too far into the weeds for today's discussion, but Sigma rules are big and out there, and they're used a lot. So to be able to convert them is great. So having those additional custom detections you can build from things on the fly, it's just an extra thing to leverage. So we run the files through Hayabusa, and generally that will give us an output of what it's seen. Some people say it triggers a lot of false positives, but that is where my role as an analyst comes in, to then analyze what we're seeing and take away potential false positives from true. positives. So yeah, so that is how I like to use Hayabusa. We drop down now into Chainsaw.
Awesome. And before we move into Chainsaw, can you just give me a quick example of maybe a recent time that you used Hayabusa?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
I use Hayabusa whenever I have the ability to live response the event file. It gives me that belt and braces approach to just ensuring that I've done everything that is possible for the customer. And that Defender does a fantastic job in displaying the information that we have. But like I say, when it becomes quite a lot of that information, you've had to go through quite a few different alerts, for instance, or I know a lot of artifacts that have been seen across this detection, that sometimes just running that tool just to ensure that it's triggered on the same things and nothing else is just a nice little belt and braces approach. And it's also come into use quite recently on a large scale incident where a customer of ours had a vulnerability and that vulnerability was exploited. And from there, the attacker managed to move laterally across the estate. Fortunately, it wasn't their main environment. It was a side network which they have. So while the damage was minimal, the running the tools actually showed us all of the different hosts that the lateral movement had been seen and then what had been run from them. It was quite good at just ensuring that we catch everything and we get eyes on it all.
Let's talk a little bit about Chainsaw.
Chainsaw works very similar to Hayabusa. It works on the same Sigma rules. It has its own built-in detections, and it's great. How I like to leverage it is to sometimes dig in with more specificity with Chainsaw. Chainsaw gives us the ability to search for keywords and phrases that Hayabusa does not do. Hayabusa will just run a timeline and generate that for us, and it can bring us the output. But if I see a host or something specific in which I want to generate all of my ruling around, that's now where I jump into Chainsaw. Chainsaw lets me use a search flag, and I can search on a specific username. If you imagine if we're taking event logs from a domain controller, there is a lot there to go through. And I may be one to look for, we may have noticed through Hayabusa that an account called administrator has been compromised. From there, I'll use the same event logs into Chainsaw, only being specific to search for administrator. And that then allows me to go that next level down in granular of what it is we're looking at.
All right, perfect. So how does Chainsaw tie into Timeline Explorer?
Yeah, so with both Hayabusa and Chainsaw, we get a CSV output if we choose that. We have options for multiple outputs, but what we like to work in is CSV. And from there, Timeline Explorer by Eric Zimmerman, the man who was a DFIR god, it makes it incredibly easy to look and then filter through that output that you get, because when running both these tools, you can get a large amount of information fly past on the screen as it's finding and triggering on detection rules. But we need to collate that and we need to be able to read that and understand that. And that's where Timeline Explorer really comes in. Its simplicity is what makes it incredibly powerful. It's very easy to use. It's very easy to get to see what you need to see quick. Being able to filter it nice and quick and just being able to handle that raw data in a very fast format is what is actually superb with Timeline Explorer. If you're using a Windows endpoint, both Hayabusa and Chainsaw are available on GitHub for free, and you can find Timeline Explorer very easy by just popping that into Google, and it's straight there for you.
Any resources on YouTube or anywhere else you'd recommend?
So both Chainsaw and Hayabusa have videos on their usage on YouTube. One thing I love with Hayabusa is you get a very comprehensive PDF talking you through every which way it can be used, all of the different outputs it can produce. You can leverage Hayabusa to produce you a report as a PDF if you like. It is really superb in its tool. But to get going and get using these things is you already have a Windows machine. And majority of people who are getting into this have the ability to set up a little sandbox environment. You can get a virtual machine. You can get a Windows 10 or Windows 11 ISO from Microsoft themselves, spin it up, turn Defender off, go and grab Mimikatz, go and grab any well-known tool, then go in to your Windows event logs, found Windows System 32, Win EVT logs. They're all found there. All your event logs will be there. Pull them all out, make a copy, run them through Hayabusa, see what it's seen. Did it see what you've done? Did it tick all the boxes for all the activity that you've managed to get away with on that host? And then you see on both sides of the coin, you're seeing it from that red team aspect or that malicious actor aspect, but then also as a defender, what logs are then generated you can actually see from those activities.
Andrew, super useful conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your insights here. One last question for you. If you weren't a cyber defender, what do you think you'd be doing?
Well, prior to this, I was a chef for nearly 2 decades. So I think I've already ticked the box of what I would be doing.
What kind of food?
I worked across a variant range of restaurants. I think it's quite difficult to pin it down to a style. I think we'd say it was classed as modern British, which is basically using all of the classic French techniques with English ingredients, really.
Excellent. And so somewhere in there's a metaphor about how digital forensics is much like being a chef, but I'm not going to try to do that.
Yeah, I would imagine they definitely have such similarities. Yeah. Definitely when you get down to the nitty gritty of things and the analyzing, without a doubt.
Okay, thank you for listening, and special thank you to Andrew Tranter for sharing his insights into Hayabusa, Chainsaw, and Timeline Explorer. We'll post links to these resources along with our podcast, and you can find out more on our blog at ontinu.com/resources. Here at Ontinu, we've built our MXDR service specifically for organizations that rely on the Microsoft Defender 365 suite of tools. It's our focus on the Microsoft control plane that means we take over more of your work, do more through automation, help you strengthen your security posture, and of course, get more value out of your security investments. It's what allows us to go well beyond generic alert handling, typical of MDR and MSSP providers. To learn more, go to ontinu.com. This is Defend Your Time. I'm your host, Chris Taylor.